Who will win the battle of the humanoid bots? We will go over the top five companies, including Figure AI, Apptronics, as well as, of course, Tesla and their Tesla bot. And they are powered, these humanoid bots, by some of the most powerful AI in the world. OpenAI, Google, Amazon, as well as Tesla and xAI. So we're going to get into that soon. We have Randy Kirk with us.
How you doing? Listen, Brian and I talked about this the other day. We felt that there wasn't really any channel or combination of channels, in this case, his channel and my channel. There was nobody out there that was really staying 100% on top of the whole humanoid robot situation in a way that gives you everything you need to know as an investor, everything you need to know, maybe just as a somebody who's interested in science and likes to follow the technology as it's developing. And so where I personally on my channel commonly don't care that much about the competition, this is an exception. In this particular case, what we're talking about is the most important product ever developed by humans. I mean, maybe the wheel. I mean, maybe, I don't know, but certainly on that level in terms of the way it's going to change things. And because it is so new and has over 100 companies working on it, there's a lot of tech coming in this way, that way, this way, that way, and everybody's got a different idea how to do it. And so the competition is less about who is going to make more money and more about who's got like the coolest, most interesting thing that they might all end up adopting at one time or another, some piece of each other's work. So anyway, I think it's absolutely fascinating as an investor. I think you should stay on top of the trend in the overall tech in order to best understand it.
Okay, so let me get into the slides. We have about 20 slides here, many on Figure AI and the others, but so we're going to go over so you have an idea of what these top five companies are doing. And as you mentioned, there are other companies. I haven't even got to the Chinese companies, Unitree and other stuff. We're just looking at the mainly North American ones with the European company as well. So Figure AI, everyone knows about Figure. They got $675 million in funding at a $2.4 billion valuation. OpenAI is working with them some. They have the Figure '01 robot, and now they have the Figure '02 robot. Here's the Figure '02, and they'll have a Figure '03 soon. They have a lot of contracts and partnerships. They talk about doing a home launch. They were talking about doing that 2 years from now, and now they're going to do it at the end of this year. So all their plans are speeding up. As a
Well, let's
comparison, before I
let's
get,
let's drop back to Figure for a minute. So, the conversation has been more or less that the real application right now was in the factory. And Tesla, for all as far as we're concerned, is, being Tesla, being Elon Musk fans, is as far as we know, that's all that Tesla's interested in right now. But I've always said that the way that other companies are going to be able to be successful against somebody like Tesla is to niche themselves. And it looks like potentially that Figure has figured out that they they might want to niche themselves in that home market earlier than Tesla has any intentions to do.
right. So just to give everyone an overview, who may not remember what Tesla and Optimus are planning to do, there's talk about getting to 500,000 to a million units by 2027, getting to $20,000 per unit of cost, to make them at scale. And then so 2025, this year, 5,000 to 10,000 units. There are already probably hundreds in the factory right now. We don't know. And then next year, 50,000 to 100,000 units. By the beginning of next year, the goal is to start making them by 10,000 per month. So this year at about like 1,000 per month or 2,000 per month. And then getting to that 500,000 to a million level. So that is the plan. And they will be primarily in Tesla factories, because you could have 100,000, 200,000 in Tesla factories alone, because there's 20,000 to 30,000 employees in each factory. And then Elon has also that other company, SpaceX, among his many other companies, which also would have a demand for many bots and then all the suppliers. Um,
Yeah,
so
because
that's
Tesla has that unique relationship with their suppliers where they're actually almost an engineering consulting firm to their suppliers,
mhm.
commonly having employees on the factory floor sitting in the design meetings with their designers. and helping them to optimize the design, helping them to optimize their factories. So if they could also bring along a highly competent robot, this could drop some of the costs of the componentry that they're buying from their suppliers as well.
Yeah, and we'll get into technical details and many other things about that after we do an overview of where these top five are at. So now getting into where Figure AI is at. They're scaling in 2025. They have the Figure 2 robot. It's optimized for manufacturing at scale, and they have deployed probably hundreds of these robots, or at least nearly 100 of those robots. They're in BMW facilities since last year, and the pilots seem to have gone well. Although this, the video they show is them doing a simulated factory task, not an actual factory task, but presumably they have tried to do something in factories because BMW has many factories. And then the discussion of a Figure 03 robot for 2026 that they would make in the thousands. So the Figure 03 bot is coming. They have a fourth generation hand. And again, it just looks like a hand, opening and closing and that kind of thing. And they're talking about getting to 100,000 robots over the next 4 years. So if we recall, Tesla is talking about getting to 1 million robots, 2027, maybe 2028, and Figure is talking about 100,000 robots. And they also may have, besides BMW, they seem to be working with Amazon and maybe Walmart, though it seems like Amazon and Walmart would be the primary client that would get them, and perhaps both of them, to that 100,000 robot level. So mainly logistics, sorting packages, that kind of thing. And then their 2024 funding, as I said, was 2/3 of $1 billion. So 2050 robots in the home for pilot usage by the end of this year. So they're only dipping their toe into the home market. They have a video showing two robots working together beside an open door of a fridge. So they're moving apples, moving things into the fridge for this in their home lab test. And they also have shown it working with the coffee machine, many other tasks. And then this was them having several robots in the video sorting things like you were sorting things for packages for Amazon over Walmart. So they're saying, hey, we can do this sorting stuff. There was videos of them working in the South Carolina factory for BMW, and it was tethered. You can see there's a power line where the thing is tethered. Can't tell if it's giving it power or if it's just for balance or safety. This is probably an earlier version with more exposed wires. We could go back and do deep dives around the componentry around what they're doing. So we'll just get over the overview as well. So they had the BMW update. And they're talking about running 1,000 placements a day. So they're saying that like they're moving, a fender or some other parts and then placing them, 1,000 per day. So if you have like 10 bots or something like that, then each one's doing 100 of these little tasks, each one taking, say, a minute or two to do that task. So it doesn't seem to be up to human speed yet, based on that number.
Yeah, it's really hard to know because, I can do, 5,000 tasks an hour if it's some kind of task, and I can do, like for instance, typing. So, how many, see, 100 words, 100 words a minute at five. So if I can do 500 words, I can do 500 tasks a minute,
Yeah.
or no. Yeah. Anyway, what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It depends on the task. So,
Mhm.
it's real, but so far we really haven't seen any of the bots that are able to do planning fast enough to
Mhm.
operate at human speed. It seems
Right.
like it's the planning that's getting in the way of getting to human speed.
You also notice in this picture, they have these little racks moving on wheels attached to things above. So that it looks like they're modifying the factory slightly to enable the robots to do the work. It's not like they're saying, I'm removing human, popping in a humanoid bot, and making no changes to how we're doing things, which is, not necessarily a bad thing if it's low enough cost, but it goes against some of the philosophy um, of that Tesla often talks about, which is, that they would be able to put the human and bot to replace a human in a task without reconfiguring the factory to do it. If I had to reconfigure the factory for 1,000, 10,000 different jobs, that's a lot of you're doing the whole thing. So it's a question about how much we're looking at there to get that. It goes back to kind of like the LiDAR robotaxi training wheels versus
Right.
actually doing it for real. But early days testing,
Yep. Yep.
training wheels not bad when you're first learning to ride the bicycle. Okay, so then three major business opportunities. Again, they have the big plan of replacing physical labor, $42 trillion, households, 700,000 seniors who may need home care. So they talk about, 2 billion, again, just saying that the market is huge. We know that. And they also toss in space off-world uses for large scale, which
Yes.
I guess they'll have to get SpaceX to take in there.
Yeah, that's right.
We'll see how that works out for them. Okay, so now to the next company, 1X Technology. So another partner with OpenAI. So OpenAI is involved with Figure, and they're involved with 1X Technologies. They have some video of and again, home use, where it's using a Dyson vacuum cleaner. So, the vacuum cleaner you already have in your home, it's using it. So no modification. They're just saying, hey, I can use that tool. So it's a tool using humanoid robot. Interesting enough, they got it covered up, like no hard metal surfaces and edges to get yourself cut on. So they have a soft layer over it. It even looks like, just like in the Star Wars movie C-3PO, the actor, Daniels was inside he was very thin inside the C-3PO 3PO skeleton or a shell. And then here it is a bot inside there, but it does look like you could actually stick a human inside, like the whole dancing human thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they have, closing in on $250 million of funding, 100, 300 robots in commercial settings. Here we have a picture of one of their earlier bots doing that supply chain warehouse stuff, which is, everyone wants to do that because, um, the logistics companies are wanting to do this. So they have 20 to 50 going toward the home pilot. They have two bots, Eve and Neo. 2026, they're looking to get 500, maybe 1,000 bots in some kind of commercial deployment, maybe 500 bots in homes, and then, really kicking it up into serious high gear. They often talk about the various human bot companies talk about scaling up 10 times every year. So as soon as you get to 1,000, then the next year you want to be 10,000. The year after that, you'll be 100,000. So, getting to that first 1,000 is critical so you can get to the big scaling plans. Apptronik, they work with Google. Google's an investor. Google DeepMind software works with them. They have a stationary version, which could also be on wheels, the A1 bot, and then they have one with legs. Having legs is not a big deal. Honda has been doing that for 2 decades, but only for the demo, the Honda bot demo. They just walked around and was more of um, a, a party trick than anything else and anything useful. And then, so Apptronik, third of $1 billion, over $30 billion in funding. They're doing pilots with Mercedes-Benz mainly. They started last year on it, still piloting this year. Have not seemed to have gotten the green light from the pilot saying, hey, we're going to scale, although the plan is to scale, but it's maybe doing dozens of bots this year, hundreds next year. So they would be, if they hit this kind of thing, they're kind of 1/10 of what the first two we're talking about to get to thousands, and 1/100th if Tesla can get their 100,000 for 2026. So still TBD how that goes. They're also working with GXO Logistics. GXO and Amazon they really want to get warehouse and supply chain robots. They have about 20, 50 units right now, and they want to grow 10 times again next year. A very common scaling plan. I make however many, 50, 500. I make 1,000, I make 10,000. That 10x comes up a lot. Um, and then this was Apptronik. They seem to skip over that. They didn't, still Apptronik, yeah. So they're targeting 2026. They're working with Jabil. Jabil makes things like sound equipment, ear sets, stereo equipment, other things. So they manufacture a lot of electronics. So they want to buy robots and they want to make the robots for Apptronics. I think they're the main production thing. There could be many other supply chain partners. Jabil seems to be one of the main ones. They want to have their Apollo bots making Apollo bots. That's a goal. And they could potentially reach 1,000 by late 2026. So significant scaling, starting with 10 to 30 units this year. Agility robots. Didn't bother to get a picture of them. They've had a robot that has more stubby hands, actually stubby arms. There's no hand on it. So it's like you have an end of a baseball bat of the things, and it walks around kind of like the knees go backwards. So not really totally like a humanoid. But on the fourth version, they'll have the fifth, so they may decide to change their plans about that. They have made a factory that can make up to 10,000 robots a year, but they're only at maybe 100 last year, maybe get to 1,000 this year, talking about getting to 2,000, 5,000. But they have the capacity to go to 10,000. They could, whenever they feel like actually scaling up, they could probably scale up in a few months to get to the full 10,000 if the supply chain partners are ready to go. So probably about 300 up right now, and they're in their various pilots, and they have their factory, and then they have others talking about getting to 1,000 and then several thousand. We'll see how that goes. GXO again, Amazon again, more trials with them. Schaeffler, future plants. There's a lot of focus on logistics. Really want to nail that use case. It's plenty big. You can do millions of bots in that case. So that is the slide deck.
Yeah, so one of the interesting things as you're going through that beginning, and these are like the five, I would think you'd agree that you chose them because they're leading in terms of capitalization, in terms of how far they are along with their products, whether they have a factory or not. So they're kind of the leading lights in the non-Chinese makers. There's a few others that, one that's making a human, using almost like a human musculature, and stuff, but they're a little bit behind the rest. But these would be maybe the five that are the furthest along. One of the interesting things too is you look at a couple of them that are not thinking like millions and millions, but only building a factory for 10,000. People, we get all involved in the stock market and looking at companies like Tesla, and we forget if they make 10,000 of these things and charge $100,000 each. It's a lot of money. It's not a small business. That is a fine business.
$1 billion, yeah.
I would be thrilled to be owning and running that business, even if it was far less. And there are so many niches. There are so many places that a company can come along. Maybe their cost is double Tesla's to make the bot, but they design it with a third arm, or they design it with eyes all the way around. I don't know, but pick your poison. But they might have a very specific use case where they design the robot to be absolutely amazing in that use case, and they just own that piece. They own that part of the market.
Right. So they literally have the potential to have billions of humanoid bots. There's 8 billion humans. If you look at the other large mechanical device that is of toward that scale, then you're looking at the car, and they're up to just shy of 100 million per year, and then you have like 2 billion is the global fleet of cars, right? So that's like one car for every 4 people, right? One car per global household kind of thing. So, but the potential for 8 billion, you can actually get 10x the size. You can say, okay, we could have 20 billion 10 times as many as cars, because every person needs 3, either for their home use or for working the factory in replacement of that, in the warehouses, etc. So there's these very large markets where they could get many, 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 many bots. So potential for many winners.
So I mean, I always like to use this example. Right now, pretty much even the United States has a lot of litter, has a lot of trash. We've tried to keep people from littering. We try to pick it up as often as we can. But if you drive down I'm in Los Angeles, you drive down to Los Angeles freeways, and there's litter in the center divider, and there's litter on the side of the road. If you have these bots
Mhm.
that are only costing you pennies per hour to operate,
Mhm.
you could be picking up every piece of litter on Earth. I mean,
Mhm.
you could have them at the beaches, you could have them at the river, you could have them, on the freeways, uh, very capably not going into traffic, very capably just day after day walking up and down the center divider and picking up the litter. I mean, that's the kind of thing where we talk about 3 times as many as humans, because there's these kinds of things that you can't afford to do until it's only pennies a day.
Right, right. And but the main issue of who ultimately wins, how really valuable is less the manufacturing of the bot. People think, well, if I can't make the bots, I can't whatever. There was a Stanford set of graduate students, 3 people, because very smart people, who did some bot tests. It wasn't humanoid bots, but it was arms that they bought off the shelf because there's 3 guys. They can't make a factory, right? So they buy off the part shelf, and it would have these little pincers things where the arms were like on a little dolly, like you were kind of roll something up like a projector, right? And it would have the arms on top. So then they could control either with teleoperation or with software. So they did both. With the teleoperation, it would be able to make a 3-course meal, right? So that just meant that if they had the intelligence behind it, you could cook a 3-course, 4-course meal, totally do the chef thing, using pans, using forks, using whatever to mix the eggs, make whatever you're going to do, right? So that just shows that, and this was like with crude off-the-shelf pincer things, not like the $100 million for really fancy hands made by hundreds of engineers and that kind of stuff. So the hardware is not the limitation to how useful these things will be, right? Obviously, the more you can make the hardware better, then less limitations. Again, the issue of not adjusting
Right.
what we're doing. Because if I have to rebuild every factory to deploy, then it's not just the fact that I'm paying $50,000, $100,000 for a, each bot. It's that I have to then take the time and effort to redo things to change my whole factory. That would make the deployment, like the friction, really bad. Whereas, like, I don't want to do it, right? Um, for people who don't remember or weren't alive at the point, before to get on the internet, we would use dial-up modems. So you have the regular old-style landline phone, and it would like beep, 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 and it would connect up audibly, and then you would get online. It was slower than our current, you know, internet, cable, other things, 50, 100 times slower. But you had that lag of you could not get connected for a minute, 30 seconds, a minute. If the thing was having problems, it could take you many minutes to get connected of it. That friction, but before I could actually start to do something, and the fact that it wasn't affordable or reasonable for me to leave it connected all the time.
Yeah.
That little barrier was something that was holding back the usage of the internet, by 50 to 100 times. So similarly for here, the reason you want to go to human bot is to get frictionless adoption. I'm not going to be able to dump in millions, billions of bots if I have to, do the changes to my home. It's just like if I want to have a wheelchair into my home and I got to make a wheelchair ramp, right, into every building, and they put that kind of rule out there, right? How many buildings have wheelchair ramps? It's just a ramp. It's just like a little, a few planks of wood leading up to my home against stairs,
Right.
right? If you have to do that, it does not adopt. It is 1,000 times smaller.
And for your own, many of you probably don't own a factory, you don't own a distribution center, you don't own a fast food place or a nursing home, and you're thinking about, well, what about in the home? And commonly people are like, yeah, I wanted to do the dishes, mow the lawn, I wanted to do these chores that I don't like doing. That's the main thing that's on people's mind. But the cool thing is, right now we've just got Grok 3 who can talk to you, okay? and you can sit here and you can go, "Hey, Grok, you know, what happened with the Dodgers today?" And it'll give you a verbal answer just like a friend would. It's very, very cool. Okay, you've been able to do that with Siri, kind of. But when you're doing that, I don't know about you, but I find myself not thinking of it, not considering it. I would rather I just go on and I still Google or I go on Grok with a text instead of just asking it because this is a slab of a slab of plastic.
Mhm.
But if I got something that looks like a human sitting next to me, maybe even dressed like a human, maybe with a face like a human, it's going to be a lot easier. Even if we're say on this show right now, it could be like some people have their assistants. I'm sure you've seen podcasts where they've got an assistant sitting across the room and they go, "Yeah, look that up. See if it's really, 300,000 or 700,000." Well, I could have that assistant. I could be using this right now, but it doesn't feel right. It's another kind of friction that you're talking about that
Mhm.
is going to be gone. That friction will be
Yeah,
gone, and we'll be talking to it like a friend.
right. And there has to be, besides user interface, utterly clean, friction free, there has to be the trust. Because if I have someone next to me, a regular person, right? If we don't have the trust where like I'm going to ask you something and to do something, and then even there's no communication problem. I can talk to them and ask them anything I want. But if I don't trust them, then I'm not going to do that thing. So there's the reliability, the trust. There's also the anticipation. It's like if I have to explain over and over again, here's what I mean, here's that. It's like that becomes a hassle too. So there has to be complete trust, complete understanding, complete ease of use in order to have this whoosh of like, and it's all going to work perfectly.
And from the very beginning, we've talked about, and so for those of you who haven't been following along, for 2 years now with my channel or his channel, we've talked about from the very beginning that, okay, well, the hardware is hard, mostly the hand. It's pretty much about the hand. And then the software is hard. It's pretty much about the planning because you can teach it to push and to pull and to squeeze, but planning how to actually execute on every single job is the hard part. Okay, but what did everybody think was going to be the really hard part? The socialization. Once you unbox your robot, how do you get it to learn how to do the tasks that you want to get it to learn how to do? And from what we're seeing now, again, with Grok 3 and other large language models, seeming more and more to me, Brian, maybe I don't know if you feel this way, seeming more and more to me like when the robot gets out of the box, it'll just say, "What do you want me to do?"
Mhm.
And you'll be able to show it, physically show it what you want it to do. You'll be able to walk it through your house or walk it through the factory and show the layout and who's who, introduce it to the folks that are in the factory. It'll never forget the name.
Mhm.
It'll never forget what their job is. It'll never forget the route to go here or there. I know I do. I forget all those things, the name, the job of the person, and also how to get from here to there. So it seems to me that it'll be that last kind of element that people were worried about. You may not even need a Tesla engineer to show up and help socialize the bots. It may be a lot simpler than we ever thought.
Again, for the really like multi-million unit adoption, there cannot be any kind of like technician, other thing coming in there. Just like for the robotaxi, you can't have a safety driver, you can't have a safety operator for these things. It has to basically be able to do that in a completely safe, completely productive way, right? So that's what, you know, robotaxi will need. Like right now, we have only like 500 Waymo cars, right? There's maybe some push to get to 5,000 or something like that. If you have things like LiDAR, things like safety drivers, remote drivers, any friction at all, you're stuck at these hundreds to thousands of unit level, right? Especially with extra costs. I have to hyper map the entire location, right? So I have to have maps down to the millimeter and then updated constantly whenever some construction happens. If yes, we can do it, but it stops you from rolling out. right? It's a constant burden on you. It's like, okay, I can do a 10-mile hike, but then if I have to carry a 100-pound pack, it makes it that much harder and I can't keep going, right? So these elimination of friction is a huge aspect to it. Also, in terms of selling, the four other companies and many other ones, they often have to sell and market to get to their first million units. Tesla just has to make them. They will get them then into their own factories, into SpaceX. It's not like, BMW is working with Figure. Mercedes is working with Apptronik or whatever, right? So there's if they're not actually making it, then there's also Jabal, so they have like customer, production partner, other company. It's a bunch of like coordination between different groups, like to get them to all say, yeah, we're all going to go to hundreds of thousands of units. That's where they need the big customer like an Amazon or Walmart to say, okay, yes, one company will take 100,000 for the purpose of warehouse and stuff. So yeah, that makes sense. You can see that, but if they have to sell 1,000 companies, each one taking 100, that could happen, but it's just it's 1,000 decision makers have to make the choice then to do it, right? There's an adoption, friction, and risk. So scaling to millions, it must be friction free. It must be like, by definition, the only way it happens is if like no dial-up modem, 20-second delay, no nothing, no like, hey, even the thing of like when we go right now to talk to the devices, we just say like, hey, Echo, hey, whatever, that. People say, well, that's nothing. It's still another friction. It's still another friction.
It
So
is.
that kind of thing matters to
Yeah.
billions.
Yeah, no kidding. If you want to really do numbers. Yeah, so again, I think Brian, the goal here, we want to be able to talk about the companies, and like today we talk more about their financial situations, about whether they've got money, whether they got a factory, where they might be in the pecking order right now among the 100 plus companies out there, most of which are in China. Also, where are they? Some pictures of their machines. But in the future, I think we're going to try to unpack some of the ways that they are mechanically superior, are doing something very, very different, ways that they are software very, very different, and taking different paths. We talked today about some of the partnerships and alliances that they have. I'm sure we'll continue to have that as part of the mix. And again, the focus will always come back to Optimus because that's the nature of my channel, at least. Brian, I think, is, pretty much focused on Tesla stuff as well. Not to say that that's the limitation on his channel by any stretch, but to the extent that Optimus is giving us news, which recently they haven't been, to the extent that Optimus is giving us news, we'll be looking for opportunities to show what has Optimus done differently, how have they improved the hand, how have they improved the software, what are they showing us in terms of its actual use case. This is going to be I've been saying forever, Brian, I think you have to, okay, I want to know about the hand, but you just pointed out that some of them are just using pinchers or things that look like the end of a baseball bat. And
Only
they're
the
do, and
academic case. I'm just giving that an example that you
but
can do.
they could do useful tasks
Right.
even with those
Right.
rude.
Yeah. Agility only uses the stubs. Right. They don't even have a hand.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah. And so, but why? Why do we have 22 degrees of freedom? Why does this new company, I think, say they have 44
Yeah.
degrees
A
of
lot.
freedom?
Yeah.
Like I
So
forget. Like,
for somebody to look forward to, you can see that their liquid muscle thing, it looks scary.
scary, scary.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll be bringing all that to you. I'm thinking we'll do at least one video a week that will focus on the robot side, and the goal will be for this to be your go-to place with regard to the entire humanoid. And by the way, it's going to go a little bit beyond humanoids too. A couple of people, top, geniuses have said anything that moves is going to be roboticized.
Right. Right. Well, there's also the deep AI part of it. Like you need to talk about the
Yes.
brains. Like that's,
Right.
a vast aspect of it. Yes.
Right. Yeah. All right, Brian.
Okay.
Anything? Yeah, I don't
No,
know.
I think a lot to look forward to. Follow us so that you can comment below. We're interested in hearing what you have to say. Give us some suggestions about what we should cover. Look forward to um, this will be a world-changing thing for many years. If like you go into next year, it's something you want to stay on top of because it'll affect your business. Um, it could be world-changing. If we get to super intelligence next year, very possible. My detailed analysis says that's going to happen. So imagine a 300 IQ humanoid bot walking around and having potentially a million of them. That could be 2027, 100,000 of them, in 2026. It could be very, very, you know, the just getting to bots for commercial is like your life could really change. I think for the better, but we'll
Yeah, yeah.
discuss that.
All right.
Okay. Talk to you next time.